Because we know people who should be successful, but what? They're not successful. Why?
So that's his why buy. But what is he afraid of?
My personal style of education, but entertain them, bring them along with stories, right?
Who do we want to learn from? People who are what? Killing it. If you're a real man, what do you do? I'm not the only one.
You can't wait to tell your spouse. You can't wait to tell your colleague. You can't wait to go to work and tell somebody. And you're like, oh my God, I can't wait. So what happened?
If you haven't seen my TV show, you should get cable. That's what you need to do.
From doing a TV show to doing corporate events, I've been so lucky to connect with many passionate entrepreneurs worldwide.
What I've learned from a business perspective.
Because this is the formula for success, no matter who you talk to. Attitude will drive your behavior. Would you agree? And your behavior will drive your consequences every single time.
All right, we got the concept. Okay, we got the concept. We got the equipment, right? We got the brand. You guys got that. And then again, we got the content that we create. That's the easy part. This is the big one, the big C, which is the commitment.
What should you do? That's right. All right. 10Xers, do not fail me. True test. Here it comes.
There's skill, and then there's will. Listen to what I'm saying. There is skill, and then there is will. And here's the interesting thing. I know a lot of people who have a lot of skill, but have no what? Will, right? You ever look at somebody who's successful, and you say, why them, why not you? Yes, okay, that's me too.
You have more control, but your costs are also going to be what? Higher.
Now, here's where some of the magic is starting to kick in.
You can talk to any CEO in the B2B business, any CEO. You walk into his office and they only care about three things. People too. Yeah, he with the suit, put it up. There you go. I hope you can see this. I'll try to draw big. Let's pretend for a moment that I had 7 territories. You remember I wrote that out? Yes or no? Boom. Territory 2, territory 3, all the way to territory number what? 7. So now I've segmented my market.
So content is going to start being created by machines. And I'm telling you right now that those people, you guys, the content creators that connect with people are the ones that are going to win. Some people think, well, it won't work for my industry. Really? It'll work for any industry. Trust me. The majority of the time when we're looking to fix something, repair something, or learn something, where do we go? YouTube. We don't even want to read anymore. We go to YouTube. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong.
When you're doing your thing, beautiful things begin to happen. It's like the law of attraction kicks in. You know what I mean? It's almost like you're in line with the universe. Everything works. And when you do your thing, everybody gets an automatic MBA, which stands for what? Mega Bank Account Money. Are you with me? So we don't want to do a thing. We want to do a what? Beautiful.
All right, put it all together for Victor Antonio. Here we go.
All right, there we go. I'm not here to mess around. You ready to learn? Yes or no?
That's how it works in today's market. Whether it's B2B or B2C, you see the similar pattern. How do you just, in other words, say you got to start doing these things, pushing them, but also encouraging them. Oh, look at this. This is where it gets, dude, this is like so interactive with audiences, Matt. Can you imagine this with your customers? Check this out. Now, what does all this have to do with selling? It has everything to do with selling.
Now, can you guys hear me? Give me one if you can hear me now. No sound. All right. So all that excitement and no volume. Damn it. All right. Can you hear me now? By the way, all right. Now you should be able to hear me, right? Cool. No sound, no volume, no sound. Anyway, it was a lot of exciting stuff I said before that, so you missed it all. So sorry about that. But anyway, I was talking about the, I won't be a speaker at the 10X Challenge. By the way, I don't know if you guys know this, but the Sales Velocity Academy, by the way, subscribe and all that good stuff. You should be able to hear me now, man. I forgot to hit one button on my control. Also, a lot of people don't know that the Sales Velocity Academy is also on the Grant Cardone website as well. So if you go to Cardone University, if you're a subscriber there, got my contents there as well. So I've been working with Grant for the last, 2-3 years. Great group of people. And again, a big shout out to my man, Jared Glant. What's happening, Jared? And so anyway, so we got the volume back, man. We got the volume back. We're all good. So I said a lot of great things. You missed it. It was all good. But I was just saying hi. And I was talking about Tech Tuesday. The technology I was going to show you failed me, so I'm not going to show it to you. So I said, you know what? Let me slide in some of this Grant content. And it's something that I've been wanting to talk about. I just needed a reason to do it. So we're good now. We're good now. So we got the sound. And again, I apologize. So again, if you're watching this on a replay, fast forward 5 minutes. And we're going to jump into it right now. So let me jump into the content. And let me set this up. And then I'll come back to the comments later. So about maybe 2.5, time flies, man. Time's just funny. I think it was like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I did a 3-day boot camp with Grant Cardone and his team, Jared Glant, his team. It was a good boot camp, man. It was interesting. Working with Grant was also an experience in and of itself. I should do a whole Sales After Dark just on that. The dude's intense, man. He's a good guy, though, man. He's a good guy. But there was a video of Grant closing a sale over the phone, right? And I remember I heard the line, I heard the phrase that he used, and I was like, there's so much psychology and persuasion in that close that the average person would go, that's an interesting close. But no, it's brilliant on so many levels. And I thought I'd highlight this one close because I want to highlight it for you because, again, it was a live call he was doing. You could probably find it on YouTube. I don't know the video. But I remember he jumped on for one of the sales reps. He jumped on to close it, and he did. And the close he used was like really fascinating because he used a 3-choice or 3-option close. But the way he did it and the psychology behind it was so fascinating that it just stuck with me. And I heard him do something again like that when we did the 3-day boot camp. And again, I've been looking for a reason to kind of do it. So technology failed me. Maybe now is the time to do it. So let me walk you through. The setup was this. One of the sales reps is trying to close a deal, right? The guy simply won't close. Grant jumps on to close the sale. Asks a couple of questions, and then he goes in for the commitment. And he asked the following question. I'm going to go through the question slowly, and then let's break it apart. Now, before I give you Grant's close, let me share with you a study that was done that was really interesting. And I just call it the Truth Serum, right? And let me just kind of highlight it right here. And I call it the Truth Serum, right? And the Truth Serum is this. Let's say that I wanted to find out when your company was going to make a decision. Let's say I'm talking to you, you're a decision maker. I want to know when you're going to make a final decision, right? So I'm looking at you, when you're going to make a final decision. So I'm going to ask the first question. The first question I'm going to ask is something like this. When do you think your company will make a decision, right? So when do you think your company will make a decision? When do you think, emphasize, your company will make a decision, right? And you're going to get an answer. Let's say the person says, we think it'll be 2 months, Victor. Realistically, it's 2 months. They're going to say, you know what? Given our bureaucracy, everything, we think it's going to be 2 months. But then, that's the general question. When do you think your company, the general question, will make a decision? That's the general question. And what they found is when you ask that question, you're going to get one answer. But then to get the real answer, the truth, you now ask a specific question. And then question 2 would be, when do you personally think, right? Personally think your company will make the decision. Now, notice what happens here. When I say, when do you personally think they'll make a decision, you'll always get, I'll just say a better answer, like maybe, well, personally, I think it's going to take 3 months. That's my personal opinion. And the second answer is always the most accurate. But what's fascinating about this approach is that if you ask the general question, the person depersonalizes the answer. That's why they give you a general answer. But as soon as you say, when do you think they'll make a decision, now you're holding the person accountable, and the person feels more responsible to give you a more accurate answer. This works. I've used it. This thing works without a doubt. Ask a general question first. Hey, so when do you think you guys are going to run to make a good decision? I think it's going to be like a month or so, Victor. Yeah, but when do you personally think? You yourself, when do you personally think it'll happen? And you'll always get a more accurate answer. Okay? Keep that in mind. Now, shifting over to Grant Cardone, right? Because I got to give you that as a backdrop. So, because what he did was, it's maybe he doesn't understand what he's doing because he's so good at being a salesperson. It's so intuitive to him that he doesn't realize that a lot of stuff is backed by science and studies. So, again, guys on the phone, can't close. Grant jumps in, close the deal. And he asks this question, the 3-option question. And then we're going to dissect it. As he's talking to the person, he says something like this. And basically it was like, look, one, either, now he's selling the sales training program, Cardone University. He says, either you don't believe it works. Then he said, either you don't believe it works, you don't believe it'll work for you, or you're simply not the decision maker. Which one is it? That was it. 3 choices right there. You don't believe it'll work. Believe, not believe. You don't believe it'll work. You don't believe it'll work for you, or you're simply not the decision maker. That's a brutal statement, right? And he said that like butter, man. It just came out of his mouth like nothing, man. Like, well, either you don't believe it works, you don't believe it'll work for you, or you simply don't have the authority to make a decision. Which one is it? Now, you can't really hear the guy on the other side of the phone, but you can only imagine what he did to his brain. Because what he did was he focused in on 3 things. Basically says, there's a lot of reasons why you don't want to make a decision, but here are the 3 I think is what's going on. You don't believe it'll work, or you don't believe it works, you don't believe it'll work for you or your company, or you're simply not in a position to make a decision. Which one is it? Now, what's interesting is that if you take these over, let me just kind of slide these over. And if you look at this, and I'll just try to do this so you can see. Now, let me just see if I can slide this over so you can see it. Now, so the first one, you don't believe it works. Now, when you're looking at that one right there, you don't believe it works. This is basically a very general statement. Remember, like the Truth Serum, it's a very general statement. You don't believe it works, right? But then he goes, he says, or you don't believe it'll work for you. Now he's looking for a more accurate statement. So this one right here is very specific. You don't believe it'll work for you. And then the last one is, he's basically accusing the person of not having the authority to make that decision. Now, this is an interesting approach. I mean, it's a hard close, man. I mean, let's be honest and real about this. This is not a kind of closing. This is going in for the close. But it's a fascinating approach in the fact that you're saying you're giving them 3 options, and when you give somebody 3 options, it's like you force their brain to pick one of the 3. And now let's go through the whole process. If the guy says, I don't believe it'll work, let's say that's his choice, well then now he opens the door for Grant to make the pitch of why it works, right? That's it. Now there's an opening in the conversation. Now we extend the conversation. Remember, as long as you can keep the client open to the conversation and provide value, we're still in the game. If he chooses the second one, you don't believe it'll work for you. This is more of a defensive mood if he chooses that one, because he goes, if I say, well, I don't believe it'll work for me, right? At that point, he has to admit that he doesn't think it'll work for him. But it still opens up the conversation for a guy like Grant to say, let me show you how I've worked with companies just like yours in your industry and how it's worked for them. Can I walk you through it? Right? It'll be that one. And then the last one, this one just totally pushes him back. That's a pure qualifying question at the end. You don't have the authority to make a buying decision. Now, if you had these three choices, which one would you choose? Which one would you choose? I mean, put yourself in that game. Which one would you choose? Which one would you choose? Right? It's a hard choice, right? Because it's all coming at you very quickly. Now, I know a lot of people who I've shown this to, they goes, Victor, that's too hard of a close. I don't know if I want to go that hard. And again, it's always about what you're comfortable and style. It's an effective close because you're asking the client to pick. You got to choose one, right? And by the way, this is also qualifying. Do you have the authority to make a decision? Now, most of you are saying too, you don't believe it'll work for you. I really think that this one right here is the big one. I believe people believe the product works. They've seen it work. We know it works. But they don't believe it'll work for what? Them. Right? I think that's the big one. Number 2 is the big one to me. If they believe it works for them, then they'll make the buying decision. They'll force the buying decision. Now, when I was thinking about this, I go, is there another way of presenting it? So I'm going to give you an alternative using the same structure, but just a different flow, and you tell me which you like best. We'll call this G1, Grant 1, and then if I can modify Grant's approach a little bit, I'm going to modify his approach a bit, and maybe this will become more palatable to you. Because again, look, one of the things we have to do is I like to listen to different people's point of view. A lot of different sales experts out there. I love to listen to everybody's point of view. Everybody has something to offer. And when I hear something like this, I'm like, can I use that way? And if the answer comes back no, I always ask myself, well, how would I use it? That what I would feel comfortable with, right? So here's how I would do it. This would be, I'm going to call this G2, right? Well, I'll just call it V1, right? That's Grant, this is Victor's, but I'm going to borrow Grant's stuff. So I would really say the same thing, but I would just slightly modify it. Slightly modify it to fit my style, right? I would say, I'm talking to Brian here, my man Gator. I'm talking to Brian. I said, Brian, I said, there's 3 reasons. Here's how I would set it up. There's 3 reasons why you're not ready to make a commitment. Now, as soon as I said, Brian, there's 3 reasons why you're probably not ready to make a commitment. I'll say the first one is, 1, you don't believe, and again, you don't believe that the product works. Is that it? Now, Brian's got to give me a yes or no. And he's going to say, no, Victor, I believe it'll work. I said, I believe, I like the program. I know it'll work. Brian, if you do believe it'll work, then the second reason you won't make commitments, you don't believe it'll work for you. Is that it? Do you think that you won't be able to apply this to your business? Is that it? Now, as soon as Brian says, no, Victor, I think it'll work for me. I know it'll work for me. I know I can use it. It's something I can do. And then I can just close it off like this. Well, Brian, if you know the product works, if you believe the product works, but more importantly, you believe it'll work for you, then the only thing that can be holding you back from making a decision is that 3, you're not in a position to make a decision. Is that it? Right? Or you don't have the authority to make a decision. Is that it? Now, Brian has to tap out one way or another. He either has to tell me he has the authority or he doesn't. I know it isn't the product or the service because you just told me it works. You believe it'll work. You believe it'll work for you or your team. You simply don't have the authority to make. Now, you got to tell me if you have the authority. Now, it's interesting because this is where ego kicks in a little bit. People don't like to admit that they don't have authority, right? That they don't like. And so sometimes you'll get a commitment because they want to prove to you that they have the authority. But I think it's interesting to kind of vet the process by simply structuring it this way. So Grant delivers it like all 3, right? You don't believe in it, you don't believe it'll work for you, or you're simply not the decision maker. Which one is it? Where I would use it in this flow, I would ask questions. I said, there's 3 reasons, Brian, why you're not willing to commit. The first one maybe is because you don't believe it'll work. No, but I believe it'll work. I said, well, maybe, too, you don't believe it'll work for you specifically or your team. Is that it? No, I believe it'll work for my team. Then I'm left to conclude if you believe it works and you believe it'll work for your team, then I'm left to conclude that you're simply not the decision maker. Is that it? Right? Or whatever that closing line is, right? And then you'll get an answer. So I think this is a fascinating. I just wanted to share this strategy with you because how would you use it to qualify somebody? Because what you don't want to do, and this is what I could appreciate the close, is you don't want to continue the sale. Like somebody said, well, let me just get back to you, Victor. Let me think about it. No, I want to get you on the record. If you believe it, you believe it works, then why aren't you making a decision? Now, there's one more option left of why they won't buy. And I've always talked about this. In the background, there's always something. If they believe it works, and they believe it'll work for them or their team, and I say, no, Victor, I have the authority to make the decision, i.e., I have the money, then I always say in the background, there's fear, right? They simply don't trust you. And that's where during the conversation, you have to build that trust. So that could be the only way out. They just simply don't trust you. But if they are the decision maker, you're going to close the deal. But this is one way. Now, what I love about this strategy, it's very simple to use, but it qualifies the buyer almost immediately. And now the buyer has to give you an answer. So think back to the Truth Serum. Ask a general question first. When do you think they'll make a decision? When do you personally think they'll make a decision? Similar to what Grant was doing here in his strategy, right? Hey, you don't believe it works. You don't believe it'll work for you. So now it's more specific. And the last one is a pure qualifying one. Do you have the authority to make a buying decision? So wanted to share that with you. It's a great strategy. Love to hear your feedback. I'm going to go to the comments right now and see what I got. Tell me how you would use it. First of all, like, don't like. Should we do you like Caesars and the Romans? Like, don't like. And again, do you like, by the way, out of curiosity, let's do a vote here. Do you like the Grant version or do you like the Victor modified Grant version? Since they're both his versions, really. And let me know just go Grant or Victor. Which version do you like better? Which one would you use or feel more comfortable with? And so, again, I think it personally depends on style. It's not that one is better than the other. I think it's purely style and what you're comfortable with and how you're presenting it. So anyway, I'll go to the comments. A lot of comments, man. So I'm going to catch up on here. Let me just start right here with Brian says, you're not the right fit for me, especially with the hard close qualifier. Could be, right? Somebody might pull back because they feel that's a hard close. I'm with you on that. That could be it. It's a very hard approach, man. That's why I can't do that. That's not my style. But again, I want to be careful here because too often we hear something, go, well, I would never do it that way. Well, that's the wrong thought process. That's how he does it. The question is, how can I learn from what he's doing? Because that's working for him. You see it on the phone call, it's working for him, right? He's actually doing it live, it's working for him. You got to say to yourself, how would I do it? And how would I feel comfortable using it? As opposed to going, too many people just kind of get on their high horse and go, I would never say anything like that. I would never do anything like that. But again, the real question is, how could you use it and learn from that? Irv says, not decision maker challenges the ego. Ego has strong emotion, emotions sell, right? People will like, no, I have the power to make the decision. I have the money. Then what's holding you back, right? You just eliminate that. So it is. Much better. Need to phrase the questions based on your audience. Of course. Yeah. I mean, it's all context, right? I'm giving you by the way, when Grant was doing it on the phone call, he was much smoother than I was, doing it like this. But I just want to give you the essence. Have authority, but not convinced on the value versus cost. That opens the door to drill down on the value. The 3 questions are excellent for getting to the final decision. Absolutely. It opens it up more. There's a hidden, Philip says, hidden objection. There could be. There's always a hidden objection. I think what you're trying to do is vet what's there. And again, going through those 3 questions, again, what I think is it's pretty awesome about that is that you're really kind of like, I want to say you're mentally pushing the client back on their heels to see if they're really interested, or are they just wasting your time? Because I think too often we pander to the client. We're just too kind. I'm not saying be rude, but it's like sometimes let's not let the customer waste our time. If they're not interested, let's move on to something else. Let me see. I was over on LinkedIn for a minute. Listen to Seller Be Sold tonight. By the way, Sell or Be Sold is a great book. It's a Grant Cardone book. I love that book. I've mentioned this before in my other live streams. Everybody talks about this 10X rule, great book. But the Sell or Be Sold, I think, is the best book he has. I just love that book, man. So it's a really good book. And when I say I love the book, I generally like, you know how you read something and you don't want to like it as much as you think you want to like it. And I wanted, like, I kind of like this book. You know, it was tactical and motivational. It was a beautiful balance of tactics and motivation. Sell or Be Sold, Grant Cardone. Let me see. We sell to owners directly. I use 2 and 3, but change third question to you're scared to use us. You're scared to use, or you're scared to use us. That's an interesting one, Spencer. Or you're scared to use us. That's an interesting one, because that as somebody mentioned earlier, I think it was Philip said, that might be a hidden objection. Well done, man. Well done. I like that. Well done. Well done. So sorry I'm late. We'll catch the replay. No worries, Cheryl. I forgot to unmute my audio on the first part. Forgive me. I like how you make it simple, but I think if you take time to do a deep needs analysis and qualify a decision-making process in the beginning of the sales buying process, you do not need all that. Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Again, the question is always, how much time do you have with the customer? So this was over the phone, and somebody had spent a lot of time with the customer, and the person just couldn't make a decision. So this is more of I would see it more of a B2C application, but I can see how you can use it in B2B. Either way, is there a way to use it in your process? That's the real question. I agree with everything you're saying right here. Do the needs analysis, do the discovery, figure out what the pain points are, figure out what's the motivation, what's driving them. All that matters. But somewhere in the conversation, when they're kind of like not ready to make a decision, even in a B2B solution, right? Let's say I'm trying to get a meeting. Let's put it in a B2B scenario, because I think you can apply it as well. And that is, let's say I'm trying to get a meeting with your boss. I just talked to the middle manager. I'm trying to get the meeting with the boss. The manager is kind of like, well, I'm going to see if I can, present this to him. And I could just take that and say, Mr. Manager, I said, let me ask you a question. And again, I would rephrase it. I said, do you believe our solution works? Manager's going to say, yeah, I believe the solution works. I said, do you believe that this solution, I said, let me just follow a question. It'll work for your company? Will it work for your company? Do you think it'll work for your company? He says, absolutely. So then the only thing I'm left to conclude is you're right now not in a position to make a decision, and we need to speak to your CEO, CTO, whatever. Is that it? And they go and say, yes, Victor, that's it. Again, we can find ways of using it, but your point is well taken. It's how do you do it, man? How do you do it? A lot of V1s, I like that. And again, it really matters on your personality. Great strategy indeed. It works. Rhett knows it works, man. It's a great strategy. Like I said, if you saw Grant Cardone's team working the phones, man, you realize that's a freaking machine over there. That's a sales machine over there. So Victor Modified Camlesh, Victor Mianox, Victor Modified version. And again, it's what you feel comfortable with, right? And depends on the energy and the rapport. Of the idiot. Matt, I don't know what that last part means, Matt, but Rhett says no, Matt. See, Rhett works for Grant. So Rhett's like, no, that's the approach. And again, if that's what works, that's what works. Stick with that. So Rhett, way to hold on, man. Way to stick to your guns, Rhett. I love that. Modified comes with less pressure. And again, I think it really depends on the scenario. And I think if it's a complex sale, you might modify that a bit because there's multiple decision makers and you're trying to advance the sale. But if it's a B2C sale, I think I would go with Grant's approach. That's what I would do. If it was a more complex sale, I think I'd go with my approach. But I think if it was more B2C, I'd probably go with Grant's approach as well. And again, Victor's mod is better intro. Again, everybody feels comfortable doing it differently. Seems the firmness of the close would relate to the size of the sale. Yes, I like that. See, that's what I've been trying to say, my friend. That's what I've been trying to say. The firmness of the close really relates to the size of the deal, because the bigger the deal, the more decision makers. So you have to kind of be aware of that. So I like that. Hi, Victor. How can I use this method in the furnishing business? Ahmed. I like that, saying that. Ahmed, give me an example about furnishing business. Like, how can I use this? I mean, I need a scenario on how you're using it. Is somebody coming into the store? Are you on the phone? Give me more so I can work with. I'd use it when the customer is just trying to make excuses. I agree. That's, by the way, Matt, that's a perfect example of your statement is a perfect statement with regard to when you feel like somebody's just stringing you on and you just need to know, right? When you just need to know, and come on, it's either, as they say, blank or get off the pot. One of the two, just do it. Yeah, I like that. I like that. I'll do a couple more here. I'm in car sales. I think I can make this close work for that as well. I think you can, Kevin. Yeah, let me see. How would you make that work? Yeah, I think you can actually, especially if you're dealing with people over the phone. Nice approach. I will try both. Yeah, let me know which one works, Kai. Like I said, it's not my idea. I'm taking no credit for this. Like I said, I just like to modify it because I said that fits my style more, given the sales I'm doing. I agree about taking content from others like Grant and using it with your own style. I love Uncle G's content, but definitely not his style, as it's just not me. And that's okay, man. That's everybody. Look, I think if you were to interview Grant or any other sales expert, they'll tell you the same thing. Dude, I'm showing you techniques, now make it yours. Own it. That's all they're going to say to you. Just own it. It depends on whether open or closed personality. Interesting point. I like that. Check out GC's Closer Survival Guide. There are a lot of clothes to put in your pocket. By the way, the Closer Survival Guide, there's a book on objections that he has. It's really a good one. It's a blue one. Matt, help me out if you know what I'm talking about. It's a blue and black cover one. It's a great book, man. It's got so many, man. Decision making is more difficult depending on price. Low price, fast decision. High price takes more time. Can we put pricing as a fourth option? Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the authority piece. It's kind of the implied in the authority piece, because if you have the authority, you have the money to make the decision. But you could also argue, Camillus, that authority and budget are two different things, right? So you could kind of play with those things. You could take number 3 out as far as authority. You can assume you're talking to a decision maker and just say, or is it simply that you don't have the budget, right? And then they'll have to tell you, is it a financial issue? So you can maybe make that your third option if you know you're talking to a decision maker. Again, many ways to bake the cake on this one. So I like the way you're thinking, man. I like the way you're thinking. Kevin says, do you think this vehicle is not good quality? Do you think the vehicle won't fit you and your family's needs? Do you need to consult with your husband or wife, or can you make this decision on your own? That last one is killer, man, Kevin. That last line is killer, man. Because it's again, you've modified. Well done, man, Kevin. Well done. You've snatched the pebble. By the way, if you don't know what snatch the pebble means because you're too young, look it up, okay? But that means good. Well done, man. Well done. I like that. I like people who just kind of can modify and do that very quickly. Well done, man. You are not saying no to me. You are saying no to your future. I love it, Chuka. All right, couple more. I got to get out of here, man. Victor Mod is way better than Grant's. Way more dignifying. Again, it's all blood and fire. It's all opinion, man. It's all style. What are your thoughts on hard, fast sells like this for cold, warm calls? Maybe a person can do 200 calls versus 100. It depends. It really depends on the sale, and it really depends on the training also. I've seen, and I'll just use Grant's place for an example. These guys train they just train like soldiers. They train like the military. They train every day, right? So, right from the beginning of the day, they got whether it's a motivational training session, they got something going on. These guys are in it, man. They're in the zone. And so that works for them if they're like focused, man. But again, when in a complex sale, it would be hard to do that, right? Because you can't get all the decision makers in one room. And if you have 5 to 9 decision makers, it's a totally different story. So I don't know. It depends. It really does depend on, on the salespeople and the team you're working with. I find that your techniques are good, but Grant Cardone is way too aggressive. That would never work here in Australia. So that's context-based, right? In the UK, for example, I was having this discussion, John, a day or two ago about how selling in the UK is a little more, you got to kind of back off. It has to be more gentle because of the perception of salespeople. And if in Australia it's the same thing, I get it, man. So and again, it's all context-based. So I love that. Thank you for that perspective, man, from down under. Rapport I've built. You've got to build the rapport. The Victor version, how about this one? I missed some part. Hate our internet connection here. Sorry, TJ. Can't do anything. Ahmed's back. When the client says, let me think about it, or let me talk with my spouse, go online. I have a perfect response to both of those. So search Victor Antonio, let me think about it. Victor Antonio, let me talk to my spouse. And I got the whole version on audio for you right there. Rob Tyson, it also depends. I have different personalities depending on who I'm talking to. I could take Grant's approach, but normally I'd go your route. And again, it matters on personality, man. You're absolutely right. Closes. Let me see. I don't know what that means, man. I must have missed other part of. I like the close. If I can show you this can work for you, are you in a position to make a decision? Smooth, John, smooth. That's been Australianized right there, man. That's an Australian version of that. And that's, again, it's a very interesting question. If I can show you that it can work for you, are you in a position, isn't that beautiful? Are you in a position to make a decision? Beautifully put, Matt. It's all elegant, Matt. That's elegance right there. And you're saying the same thing. Watch MVA's Sales Influence podcast works. Yeah, Grant style will offend people here in the Philippines. You know, but I can drop him in New York, Los Angeles, and some other places, Chicago, and he'll sell his ass off. That guy can sell, man. I don't care what, you know, whatever you believe, man. The guy can sell, man. I don't care what you say. You said it perfectly, Victor. Ahmed. Yeah, I love it, man. The hardness in Grant's method qualify the interest level of 3 clients. It really, I mean, I think there's something there. I mean, there's something, the psychology of that 3-part close is, in my opinion, is like simple brilliance that can be used. But again, modified. We've already had several versions. We had the car version, forgot who that was. We had the Australian version, and John also had his version as well. So just, again, let's be open to learning from everybody and then figure out how we would modify and use it our way. And I think on that. Anyway, so let me just start closing out, man. My final thoughts, man. Let me get over here. Final thoughts for the evening. So, first of all, thank Grant Cardone for actually letting, he didn't let me borrow it. I just kind of, on the internet. And then when I remembered it from our conversation, our 3-day workshop, check out his 3-day boot camp. I mean, it's great content. It's intense, man. It's not, one of the things I liked about the Grant Cardone 3-day training is that he let his Jared and some of the salespeople actually do some role playing on stage so you can see what they actually do. And again, is it for everybody? No. But I mean, again, remember that whole Bruce Lee thing I always talk about. Absorb what is useful, discard what is not, and then add what is uniquely yours. That's the trick right there. And so look at this approach, because what you're trying to do is, one, you're trying to qualify the person to see if they're really interested. Do they believe? Because that's a belief system you're questioning now. Do you believe it works? And do you believe it'll work for you? So now I'm asking the person to tell me one way or another, yes or no. Do you believe? Do you have a belief in our product? And that's what I love about that, right? And then the last part is, are you in a position to make a decision? And when you look at that, the position to make a decision, also, I love the other modified version. I think it was, I forgot who said it, but instead of maybe authority, do you have the authority to make a decision, or is it simply not within your budget? So you can use a financial qualifier there and just modify it your way. So, the big overall lesson is that, and I know I'm repeating myself, hear what people say, hear how they do it, and then ask yourself, how could I apply it to my business? And on that note, I'm going to start wrapping up. And by the way, if you haven't checked out the Sales Velocity Academy, you should. 50 courses, over 500 videos. We've just added 2 new fast classes. Now, a fast class is a 10 to 15 minute quick course that I give, so you don't have to spend a lot of time going through all the modules. So we got the full courses, and now we have the fast classes. So check it out, Sales Velocity Academy. And also, don't forget to subscribe. If you like this, man, hit the big like button, give it a thumbs up, and if you can do me one favor, just share this with one other person. I would greatly appreciate it. On that note, this is Victor Antonio signing off, always reminding you, selling ain't hard when you know how. Take care. See ya.